Well, hello. Another day is here, Wednesday, April 1st. I'm glad that you are joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed reading the first two chapters of this book so far. I know it's just barely started, but it's such an easy story to read and so quick to read. And I can't wait every day just to get to the next chapter. All right, remember, you're going to need these items. You'll get tired of me saying this, so make sure you always have them. You have to have your folder and your book because of Winn-Dixie. Make sure you have paper to write on so you can write your assignment down each day and something to write with, preferably a pencil. All right, I haven't been using a pencil because it doesn't show up when I lift it up and show you my work. All right, one of the first things that you had to do yesterday was go to page 5 in your folder. Could you turn there right now with me? And let's check your work and see if you have it correct. If not, correct it. All right. So sentence number 1 says, the blank preached at a new church in South Korea. I would say, since this is in a foreign country, we want to use missionary there. Is that what you put down? I am writing it down right now. Missionary, number 1. Number 2, we felt blank to have a warm house to go to on such a cold night. The correct word there would be fortunate. Not everyone has a warm place to sleep at night, so that's being fortunate. Number 3, the large blank sat quietly while the choir sang a Christmas carol. That would be congregation. Something we can't do right now. If you're used to going to churches, it's online, so we're congregation at our own home. Number 4, my mom called me for dinner, and I ran inside. I think this person was hungry because they immediately ran inside. Number 5, looking through the telescope, I saw the constellations of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor in the sky. That's the Large Dipper and the Small Dipper, if you didn't know. I am going to write that down. And number 6, I was too blank with homework to notice my little sister approaching. And that would be distracted. Don't you love it when you're doing something and someone walks up to you and scares you? All right. The part at the bottom, I would like you to fill that in. You don't have to do it right now so we can keep on with the story. But it says, in your opinion, what is the most interesting word from the first 5 chapters? And what do you think? Why do you think it is interesting? So we're only on chapter 2. Just make sure at the end, when we finish chapter 5, you have something written there. So if you see something that is an interesting word, as you're reading, stop and fill this page out. Hi, Mrs. Brogdon. She keeps walking by while I'm videotaping this. Anyway, and she thinks it's funny too. She tries to make me laugh. All right, so you had to read chapter 2. And in chapter 2, we pick up with Winn-Dixie and India walking home. And remember how I asked you to think about it when you had to try to convince your parents that you needed something really bad? Do you use the line, well, everyone else has one, or I'm the only one that doesn't have it? We come up with all kinds of reasons to justify why we need something we don't want. Most of the time it's just a want, not a need, but you have to twist it to make it that way. And I know you know what I'm talking about. You do it all the time. All right, so India is thinking about this dog, and she's thinking about how to approach her dad. But what I think is kind of interesting is she introduces her dad. She introduces him as what? She introduces him as the preacher. So if you would, let's go to page 40 real quick in your folder. Back to our characters. Let's put the preacher in. I lost my pencil. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to put a character's name, and I'm actually going to put the preacher. Preacher is P-R-E-A-C-H-E-R. So I know that he's going to be a main character. in this story. And we have to give a fact about the preacher. So let's wait a second before we fill out any facts about the preacher. But as she comes to the trailer park where they're staying at, first she talks to Winn-Dixie because this is an adult-only park. And adult-only means there's no kids because, I don't know, sometimes you're noisy. You like to go outside and play and do loud things because you're a kid. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes people want to be where there's no kids. And this would be one of the places. But the manager made an exception because her dad's the preacher. And she was a good kid. She did stay pretty quiet and out of trouble and didn't cause conflicts throughout the day. But as she was going to the trailer park, she talked to Winn-Dixie and said, I'm an exception. And that means you have to act like an exception as well. And said, you can't be barking. You can't chase the cat around and bark at the other dog. And so she was telling him he had to be a model dog to be able to stay with her as they walk into the park. And then she comes to her dad. Now she told Winn-Dixie, you sit and stay outside. And so the amazing thing is that he did that. And so with that, she went in to talk to her dad. And she felt like the best way to approach her dad was to go the way that he did. The dog was a less fortunate being because there's a lot of people being a missionary. There's a lot of people that don't have what we have today. I went to Brazil for an entire summer as a missionary, and I've been to Mexico. And they don't have it. I mean, a lot of people in Brazil were barefooted all the time. They didn't have any shoes. And you could tell they'd went their whole life without shoes because their feet were so calloused and hard. And a bathroom. They didn't have bathrooms like we have. And so, you know, I saw so many things going over and helping missionaries for the summer. And so I understand what he meant by less fortunate. And so he was a little bit more caring and considerate. And so, like I said, you try to think of things that you can use to win your parents over. Well, this is the one way that she went towards that. And so she said, well, there's this dog and he's less fortunate, and kind of described things to him. And she could tell that she was kind of getting Dad's attention. It was okay, so she called Winn-Dixie in the house. And so he was limping because we saw that in the story, and he was mangy and bald spots and really stinky, but Winn-Dixie came in smiling and put his head right on Dad's lap because he was tall enough to do that, and just kind of goes, here I am, I'm ready. And so we see very quickly that Dad sees he's less fortunate, even though he stinks, and he tells her that she's going to be able to keep Winn-Dixie. And so what would you say a fact about Dad right there? Would you say that he's caring? He's considerate? He was fair? What word would you use there? Use a word. Pick a word and write it down right now. Okay. As we go through the story, we will describe Dad a little bit more. So make sure that you have some words as we go through. Maybe as you're reading the story and you're like, oh, that's a really good way to describe Dad, or maybe India in the story, or Winn-Dixie. Whatever it is, you might put it down. At this point in the story, would you say that Winn-Dixie is obedient? Because how many dogs do you know that you could bring home for the first time and tell them to sit and stay, and they actually did until they called them? That takes training, and so this dog did that right away. So I'm going back up to Winn-Dixie, and I'm going to add obedient, O-B-E-D-I-E-N-T. Because at this point in the story, he's pretty obedient, and we're only on chapter 2. All right, so she approached her dad with it being less fortunate. Also, we learned something different in this story. India doesn't go by the name India. She was named after the country where her dad was a missionary, but she goes by the name what? Opal. She uses Opal as her name. So I'm going to circle Opal up on the character name. And to me, that represents that's her name. Whose name was that also? Yeah. Remember? Mom's. That was her mom's name. And so that's what Dad called her, was Opal. So we have that completed so far. Let's see what else I want you to do. I think that's pretty much it, what I wanted to cover for today. So your assignment for the rest of the time today is to read the next chapter. You're going to read chapter 3, and then you're going to open up your notebook, your folder there, to page 6, and I want you to answer questions 1 and 2. So go ahead and read through this chapter, answer those questions, and be ready. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.